Well, yeah, this is, thank you very much, Marco. Myself, Marco Ventin, founder of solarisBank, 26 years in banking, and solarisBank is a platform, and that's exactly what we are going to talking about. What we are talking about with PayPal, with Frank Keller. Frank, you say some words about yourself?
Yeah, managing director for Germany, Austria, Switzerland of PayPal, and also partner of Facebook, and so happy to talk about the future of finance.
Where do you want me to sit? Yeah. That's good.
Good. Martin, thank you very much for having the time as well. And then just after your nice presentation, you've talked about virtual reality, augmented reality, and many more things to come, and platform. Now we're sitting here, an American company, a German startup, a German company, small company with a banking license. Now, how do we bring those things together? When we just look at China, now China is a little bit different than the American market or the European market, but in China, WeChat last year, via its messenger, transferred 1.2 trillion US dollars. Now, here we already see how the messaging world, the communication world, and the financial world get intertwined. What are we going to see here in the future in Europe, in the US, and banking, financial services, and communication?
I think, as you say, China is a very different market, and the ecosystem also started differently. So people use a range of different applications, use cases right out of the messaging app. I think what you said is absolutely right. When you look at the US or Europe, we started very differently. So we have a very thriving big app ecosystem of tons of great apps out there. So what we want to do, we want to be that open platform that helps players from all kinds of industry, but most importantly, also when we talk about this today, traditional banks, but also great startups, players in the fintech industry, to connect with consumers in a meaningful way and use our different platforms for this. That might be obviously Facebook, where they start on Facebook, and then they might try out Instagram and eventually build a bot on Messenger, like with PayPal as well. You have things like TransferWise on there, where you can transfer money in a bot in that Messenger platform, and I think PayPal is also great bot amongst many other things as we partner with you on this.
Yeah, I think that's why we started partnering, right? We have established ecosystems. These ecosystems create opportunities for new innovation. And I think leveraging that and in partnership, we're partnering, we're in competition sometimes. And I think that's the new normal, actually, for all of us, that innovation is at a high speed and our technology platforms, they're converging and enabling something for consumers to transact. And I think the thing that is happening and that is changing, that the context where transactions are happening are more and more important. And we as technology platforms, we have to enable that for our consumers, but also for merchants and companies that want to make money on top of that, right?
When we just look at this, a couple of years ago, everybody thought you have to build everything yourselves, right? Today we say, okay, don't build things yourself, curate them, do what you do best and link to the rest and bring things onto the platform. This is true for us in solarisBank, where we say, okay, we just have the financial platform and we just get things on top. I've seen that happens in Facebook, that you see personal finance management systems on top of it, including then the next steps. You see this the same way, and how do you see this, how this will be working in banking? Not just transferring, but maybe financing different things. How do you see that?
Like in a very similar way, as you said. And, we have, you've seen Messenger, we're experimenting with partners in some way, and of course using partners from the ecosystem in the US and small tests where we do P2P transfer within the Messenger experience, right? But there's only a very tiny piece of the puzzle is we're actually trying to build out across all the platforms opportunities for startups, for banks, for players in that ecosystem to connect across the whole entire value chain. And it does obviously start, particularly when you talk about new experience, like startups that people might not have heard about, but then use it first to even get discovered in some way. See in the Discover tab, but it also could be in your newsfeed or it could be in the feed on Instagram. And then as you start building a relationship and explain what you're actually trying to do to get then people to use it, to transact regularly, then you want them to come back and building that connection throughout the whole life cycle of that customer journey. I think this is something we're really passionate about and we're trying to work out for our partners.
There was a time when big companies were fighting against each other, or companies in general. Do we see more cooperation? That you say, okay, Facebook cooperating with PayPal even more, maybe Amazon coming into the game, maybe us coming into the game, and many more. How do you see that? From my perspective, it's more cooperate on a couple of things and compete on a couple of other things. Do you see it the same?
So our mission is democratizing financial services for everybody, making it easy, convenient, and secure. And I think we have, since we've become an independent company, we have done more than 10 major partnerships with Visa, with MasterCard, with Facebook. We've just announced a partnership with Google where you see that you can use your PayPal account within Android Pay, for instance. And this shows you, while in the past we also tried to do things majorly by ourselves, we're now cooperating. Because it is important that where people are expecting things, that we are there, right? That we enable them. And when you talked about financial services for if you want to get a loan, for instance, right? We have a product, working capital, where if you are a startup, we can provide you with working capital to grow your business instantly, while it takes ages with a bank to get such a loan, if you get it as a startup.
Don't tell me. That is
we already have a huge amount of data about that, and it's all about using the data, managing the risk of it in an affordable way for both parties, and then accelerate the business for everybody.
But this shows as well at the same time that it's that the innovation and the digitization, they give further opportunities, right? This is because when we talk to traditional bankers, when we talk to traditional, I don't know, industries, everybody is afraid. They put on a CDO, sometimes very often, just to say, okay, I have a CDO, because digitization is in everybody's agenda. So they are very afraid of the innovation, the advance, etc. From my perspective, it doesn't break the market. It does break the market if you don't do it. So you see further chances. A company which wouldn't have had the chance to grow by getting cash externally, you're providing that, right?
Yes, we are announcing more and more bank partnerships.
Okay.
So I think the banks are understanding that they need to collaborate. We're happy to. I think Facebook is doing the same. And we need to provide these opportunities. And there's huge amount of opportunity. If you see that 85% in Germany, for instance, 85% of all transactions are still cash. There's a lot for us to do to digitize payments, to digitize financial services. And we can do that only if the major platforms are working together, enabling also innovation for startups, for new companies.
I think it's a tough one when you generally just look at the very large traditional banks to shift from their traditional way to adapt to the ever-changing new world. I've seen some stats recently where we looked at the Fortune 500 list. Born in 1955, and out of those 500 companies, and there were a lot of banks in there, of course, as you can imagine, a third are gone, dead. 1/3 got acquired or merged. Out of the other third, half of them are not in the Fortune 500 list anymore, so there's 75 only left. And out of those, we look at what happened is that the life expectancy in that Fortune 500 list dropped from 75 years to 15 years and decreasing. That means there's so many new companies coming there. And I think the bigger ones, yes, of course, they need to partner, they need to build up new, but they don't need to be afraid of disruption. They need to disrupt themselves, otherwise they are likely not to be there in that same setting.
I think this is exactly the point. But what do they have to disrupt? From my perspective, you always have to look at what the actual customer wants. We very often, especially in the banking world, and you guys, you're half in the banking world, coming from payments. I think this Facebook is making a big step into this now. Why? Because our social life, it gets into a context, and the context needs somehow financing for companies or for yourself. Imagine you cycle by a house, and Alexa knows that you want to buy a house, right? And you just cycle by, and in the background, it calculates, okay, Marco, actually, you can afford that house. It is now on sale. The mortgage rates are going down. So basically, the things which you had to think about before in the institution bank are now being part of the lives. And I think this is guys like you in Facebook and you in PayPal, but as well us in solarisBank and others, we are enabling that to bringing the boring financial stuff into life and make it basically disappear.
Yeah, but it's not, like this area would not something we would be doing. We would be looking to partner with someone to open the platform and let them then, based on the value proposition that they have, communicate this to the customers on the platform by finding the right people at the right context at the right time.
We're bringing this to the customer together. This is what I think is extremely happy and extremely fortunate, because if we understand that just by the cooperation of those things, bringing the strengths together, this is at the end of the day, the customer chooses. Just look at the video stores, right, that disappeared. Now we see Netflix, basically, because you want to see a TV show, you want to listen to the music on Spotify whenever, wherever you are. You don't want to wait for it. Is this happening to other industries as well? From my perspective, yes. What do you think?
I think you've seen it already in a couple of industries. Look at utilities, right? Yeah. Utilities, it became very transparent. And now you can compare all electricity bills you choose every year or whenever you want. You can switch the provider. For telecommunication, it happened the same. In banking, products are still too complex for people to understand. So we need to make these products simpler, people to understand. It will become transparent. And here, interestingly, the regulation in the EU is now helping to strive that the innovation is going to thrive. Because banks and every financial service provider has to open up their API. You're helping with that as with your platform. And now new companies can tap into these APIs and create actually what the user are expecting, right? They're expecting to make their life simpler and easier. For instance, you talked about, do I have enough money? So there are people, the non-affluent, that wake up in the morning, they don't know if they have enough money by the end of the month. New financial services are coming up to help you to manage your money, to understand, can I afford this, and in which way? And this is the part where we are the enabling factor, helping these innovations to happen and to create new use cases.
So this, you nod, so I guess this is, you look in the same direction. Although I think, and you made this clear before, and then some other chats which we had, that Facebook sees itself as the enabler.
Yes, clearly. That's, I mean, you've seen also our product technology roadmap. It's all about creating open platforms and opportunities for a thriving ecosystem, and be the old guys that starting to adapt to the new ways, or newer ones that have new opportunities to build great new experiences that are delightful and very useful for the consumer. Absolutely.
And I think on this bombshell, the timer is out. On this bombshell, we shall stop the discussion here. I guess Marco will throw us out because he has a packed program. Thank you very much, Martin.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Frank.
Yes.